In this lesson, we'll be making some modifications to the front portion of our aircraft. Okay, so now we have these two different pieces that have been modeled out and extruded. So now we just need to come in and actually join these together. So the first thing we need to do is, since these are polygon surfaces, we need to make ourselves an opening for these to actually join together. So let's come in and select these polygons and just delete those out. We'll do the same thing over here. Just grab these polygons and delete those out as well. So now what we should be able to do is grab both of these different polygon surfaces. We want to create a new polygon mesh by merging those together. So let's go ahead and move this over. We may need to increase our tolerance. So as we start to dial this up, we should see that everything does get merged together. And it might not be a bad idea to just look underneath here and make sure you don't see any more of those blue border edges. So the fact that we don't see any means that it looks like everything has merged together properly. So you can see that we still have these two original meshes that are here. Now since this is merged together properly, we can go ahead and delete those since we really don't need those anymore. Now at this point, it's really just a matter of shaping this in a way that will work for us. So we might come in here, just tag some of these points. I'll switch this to a global mode. And we can actually start to grab these and maybe pull some of these out. And here we go. So something like that. Now we might also come in here and maybe address some of these curvature issues down here at the bottom. So if I were to come in here and press the plus key on my keyboard a couple of times, or even without pressing that, we should be able to see that this curvature maybe isn't quite as sharp as what we might like. So what we should be able to do is come in here and just begin tagging some of these points. And again, I'll switch this to a wireframe so this is a little bit easier to see. We just come in here and tag some of these points and try to get these straightened up a little bit better. So we'll come in here and maybe just try to grab some of these and pull these down. Maybe do the same with these. Just trying to get these lined up a little bit better. There we go. So just continue aligning those. Let's also come in here and I'll go to Modify Polymesh and I'll use my Split Edge tool. Come in here, maybe add just another split right in there. So that way that should force this to hold its shape quite a bit better now that we have these three edges in here that are quite a bit closer together. So come in here and just try to grab these. There we are. And again, just sort of massage these into place until this is pretty close to where we would want them. We can also come in here and again, just tagging some of these points, pulling some of these around, and try to get these in a little bit closer proximity to each other, especially in this corner here. Just trying to bring these together nice and close. So get in here and again, just sort of massaging some of those points around. So that should give us now a little bit better curvature in here. If I were to press the plus key on my keyboard, you can see it's actually still needs a little bit of work. So looks like we could stand to add a little bit more curvature here, just pulling some of those points out. There we go. That's much better. Now let's work on actually adding just a little bit more definition sort of up in this front area as well. So press the minus key on my keyboard a couple of times. If you recall from one of my previous lessons, I mentioned that I'd show you a little bit easier way of actually splitting when it comes to working with a smooth mesh. So just to refresh your memory, if I were to take this mesh and smooth it, and now try to use something like my split edge tool, you can see it becomes actually really difficult to actually find out and determine exactly where I need to split. So sometimes rather than just using the plus and minus key to jump back and forth, here's a little bit easier method that you might like. What I could do is underneath this little eyeball icon, we'll click on that, and down toward the bottom we have the polymesh hulls that we can turn on. So if I turn on the polymesh hulls, now we can actually see this low-res cage of any of my smooth polygon meshes. So now I don't have to worry about actually coming in and turning off the visibility on certain parts of my mesh or trying to hide those. I can now just simply come in, and as long as that's selected, the polymesh hull should show up. Okay, now we can come in and just start to maybe clean some of these different areas up a little bit more. So let's take something like these polygons here and just delete those out. We'll do the same thing down here at the bottom, just select those and press delete to remove. Now, another reason that I wanted to do that is because I'm actually going to grab some of these polygons that are right in here and basically this entire loop and make a few quick modifications here. So with this inner row of polygons selected, let's go ahead and press Alt middle click to select that. Now if I want to continue to add more loops, we just Alt Shift middle click. So over here I'll go ahead and Shift select another polygon and now Alt Shift middle click. Now you can see we have an additional row of polygons that's been selected. This loop should be selected all the way around until we reach this backside. Now with these selected, let's go ahead and switch to our translate tool. Control D to duplicate these polygons. And a couple things I'll do is switch to a local mode, make sure COG is turned off, and we'll set the transform preferences. Make sure that we have this set to transform components independently in local mode. And with all of those things set, we should be able to come in and now grab these polygons. And what I'd like to do is just sort of inset these a little bit more than what we have currently. There we are. So now if I press the space bar and go back to object mode, you can see just a little bit more of a design that's on the inner part of this frame that we've built. Now just to finish this up, we can come in here and just tag some of these points. And what I'd like to do is just sort of tuck this underneath the aircraft body, just sort of hide those away. So I can now switch this back to a global mode so I can move these points cleanly. This actually might be a good place to use my proportional modeling, so that way I can make sure that we try to keep things nice and neat. So I'll turn on my proportional modeling and I'll roll my mouse wheel to get a little bit more influence. There we are, and now we can simply come in and just take that, sort of hide it down underneath there. There we are, maybe grab some of these points and just sort of tuck these underneath here as well. So just trying to sort of blend these into the actual aircraft body, and again just sort of allow that to be hidden underneath there. Okay, very good. So that's a look at how we can now start to take these really complex shapes that we have built with the extrude along curve, actually learn how to join those together, as well as add a little bit more detail in some of these inner areas. So in our next lesson, we're going to continue working with some of these different pieces that make up the front of this new shape.